I know that you want to save more money. There is nobody out there that can say that they wish they did not know how to save more money. And in just 3 years, I was able to pay off over $20,000 in debt and build up a $40,000 investment fund. All because I eventually learned how to put more money into my savings, lower my expenses, and inevitably use that extra money to have it work for itself. And I want to put you on game and show you how you can do exactly the same thing and save more money so that you can start to build the financial freedom that you deserve and be able to live life on your terms through your own means and not be limited by your finances. This is eventually the end goal for majority of us without even having to wait for retirement. I'm talking about freeing yourself now, living your best life as soon as possible, and putting more money aside so that you can focus on the things that really matter. When you are prepared for the worst, you will always be at your best. And I want to give you the financial blueprint towards doing that with my 5 easy ways to save more money today. This is going to help you make more money, put more money into your bank account, pay off your debts, and eventually have your money working for you. This is how we're gonna do it. 1, we're gonna have to create a budget. I know there's no real way around this, and there's so many different ways to budget. You can check out my blog that I have in the description below around budgeting, the different types of budgeting. I've also created different YouTube videos on budgeting, and I have a playlist around financial well-being and building wealth, so you definitely want to check out some more videos around that too if you are trying to get your money right. Creating a budget is going to be super important because you need to be tracking your income and expenses. You cannot save if you do not know what you need to save for and how much to put away. So definitely creating some sort of budget that outlines your income, your expenses, and then eventually setting specific savings goals for different things. Also, I think knowing your why as to what you're saving for. A lot of people don't save because they don't really know why they need to save. I would say everybody needs to save right off the bat because we all want to be prepared for the worst. We want to have an emergency fund. We want to be able to pull money from a savings account for unexpected expenses that may come up in our life, right? And this can vary. If you own a home, you're a homeowner, something may break down in your house. You do not want to wait till something breaks down and stuff starts to go wrong and then rushing and figuring out how to find the money to fund said renovations, right? Same thing if you have a car, your car might break down. You want to have that money up front ready to go to pay off for things. You may lose your job. Nobody is exempt from this. You may lose your job. Maybe you have a business and you don't have a lot of money coming in all the time. You need to save because you need to prepare yourself for those rainy days. And if you don't have a savings, you're always going to be stressed. You're always going to be pulling from credit cards. You're always going to be having to figure out how to pay down those credit cards. Not that there's other ways around funding things when something comes up unexpectedly, but the best way, the healthiest way, the less stress-free way to do it is by having a savings account. And I guarantee you there's no problem with having money sitting in cash or an account that's earning a little bit of interest. That is better than having nothing saved at all. 2, automate your savings. So I always say you need to treat your savings like a bill. If you want to learn how to automate your savings, please download my wealth tracker in the description below. I created this wealth tracker to be different from many of the other budgeting sheets that are out there. This really isn't even a budgeting sheet. It is just really a one-time way to look at your finances and figure out how you need to adjust. This is really a tracker that you come back to when things are pivoting in your life and your income and your expenses are changing. You definitely would probably look at this wealth tracker more if you're an entrepreneur because your income is always fluctuating. But if you have a 9-to-5 and your income is pretty consistent, this wealth tracker is going to be so much easier for you to use versus some of those other confusing trackers out there where you're accounting for so many different expenses and things that don't really matter. What you need to care about is treating your savings like a bill. So many people wait until the end of the month to see what money is left over in their checking, and then moving that money to their savings. You are doing that wrong because you are not prioritizing your future wealth. You are prioritizing having fun now, which is great to have fun now, but at what cost? We want to make sure that there's a healthy balance between spending now, enjoying life now, and then also preparing for your financial future so that you don't have to undergo future hardships because you didn't prepare for it now. So treating your savings like a bill is going to look like setting aside a certain amount of money every month that's going to go towards your savings as soon as you get paid. Not after you decide at some random point you want to start saving and you just want to chuck in a $50. No. How much money do you want to put away every month? And putting that money away first before spending on variable expenses. So variable expenses are expenses that aren't your immediate basic expenses, like rent. I would say groceries is an immediate expense. You can budget and limit how much you want to challenge yourself to how much you spend on your groceries every month. For me, that's around like $400. I try not to spend more than $400 every month, and I count that as a fixed expense because I know how much I am willing to spend and how much to not go over. When you have groceries as a variable expense, you're going to justify spending as much whatever money you want because you don't have a cap and a limit. So you should have a cap and a limit for all your different spending categories, but the expenses that you want to care about first is your basic expenses. I talk more about this in the wealth tracker, so you definitely want to download that below to get a better sense of how to determine how much you need to be saving every month and then automating that. Some banks have the ability where as soon as money comes in, you are dedicating a certain amount or percentage that goes straight towards your savings. So you don't have to manually do anything, touch anything, transfer money from this bank to another. It is already being done for you. So if you can figure the amount that you need to save every month, and then on top of that, find a system or platforms that speak to each other that do the transfer for you right away, even better, right? It takes the guesswork. It takes the time and inconvenience of having to do all the mental brain work yourself. 3, downsizing. I know some people don't like to hear it, but sometimes downsizing in one area or spending category can help you to spend more in another area or free up that money to now save. So sometimes I think we really need to get clear as to why we are spending the way that we are spending. A great way that I've been able to save money over the years, and is a hack that so many of us use, but living with parents. That is a great example of downsizing or trying to find ways to lower cost of living so that we can use that excess money to save. By me staying and living with my parents, that has really helped me over the past couple of years to save a lot more money towards buying a home. That money that I would have spent towards paying rent, not that there's anything wrong with paying rent, but that frees up the money that I would have been paying towards rent, I'm instead paying towards myself, therefore helping me to build up a bigger savings fund for home ownership. So sometimes you have to look at the pros and the cons. Of course, I understand for a lot of people living with their parents, it negatively affects their mental health. So as for myself, and so I've really had to find that balance over the years as to like how long am I going to stay with my parents before making the next move, and if I am going to live and rent in the city, what are the ways in which I can lower my costs? Maybe it's finding a roommate, maybe it's living a little bit further out from the city than I really wanted to. Whatever it may be, sometimes you have to make small sacrifices in order to see better returns and long-term gains in the future. And that sort of idea of delayed gratification, that you can have great things come for you and great opportunities happen to you, so as long as sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get to it, right? Versus getting all the things that you want now that feel good, that look good, that sound good, but actually make it harder for you in the long term to work towards some of the other things that are just as important, or if not more important to you. So I definitely would review your expenses to identify areas where you can cut back on. And so this can include dining out less. This can include canceling unused subscriptions. It could be just finding cost-effective ways to really lower your everyday expenses. And I usually say, look at the big ones first. Look at where you're living. Can you downsize? Look at how much you're spending on food, transportation. Maybe you have a car. I've At one point, I've sold my car because I realized I don't really need it, and it was adding a lot more unnecessary expenses. The insurance that I had to pay, and I wasn't using it that, the gas, the amount of money it costs for gas, I really didn't need a car anymore, and I could have sold the money I used to sell my car was able to help me further fund the gap year that I took off in 2022. And when I'm ready for another car, I can buy one, but I don't really see the need for it right now because I just see it as an additional expense, especially if I'm living in a city. There are so many other easier ways to get around than needing to drive all the time. And if I do need a car, I can always rent a car for a weekend or a day when I'm traveling. So for me, I realize at this point in my life, I actually don't really need a car, and that I could sell that asset and use that money for other things. So definitely really check in with yourself. I know a lot of the times our cost of living is out of reach because we are trying to live in a way that society is telling us that we need to live. We are comparing ourselves to all the celebrities and people on social media are living their lives, but that's okay because they have the money to live that kind of lifestyle, and right now you don't. And so I think being real with yourself, do you really need to live in the city and be paying this extravagant rent price? Do you need to be living in a country where the cost of living is exorbitant? This is a part of the reason why I love being a digital nomad, and I don't really stay. I don't have a place to rent in Toronto. I don't lease. When I come to Toronto, I stay with family. And then the other times I'm not with family is because I'm traveling, I'm living in other countries, and I'm staying at Airbnbs that are more affordable, or I'm staying with friends as a way to mitigate expenses. So I think you just need to be smarter with your money. I have a cousin who was living in Mexico, and literally her rent was $200 Canadian or USD a month. You don't have to be living in North America. You do not have to be living in Canada, and you don't have to be living in these first world countries where the cost of living is really just becoming out of hand. You can live in other countries, especially if you have a remote job or you have a business where you work for yourself. You can get by working and living in another country where the cost of living is much, much lower. So I really, really encourage people to stop living your life based on social media and based on this illusion of luxury and what it means to feel whole and well, because a lot of the times you don't need a mansion to feel good about yourself and to feel whole. All you need is really just a roof over your head, and that can look like a tiny house versus living in a big house with how many rooms that you don't use when there are people that are homeless on the street. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. I get really upset about, the discrepancy between wealth and the people that have so much wealth and people that have nothing. And it's like, a lot of the times you want to live like the people that have so much wealth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is going to bring you any true fulfillment and joy. And so you really need to look at your budget and your expenses and ask yourself, why am I spending so much money on this area of my life? Are there ways to cut back? And are there ways to cut back now so that I can get ahead in the near future? It doesn't mean that it's forever, but it just means that you are prioritizing your future self versus the self that you were pretending to love and want to be now based on society's expectations of you or society's forced projection of what it looks like to live a really good life, to live your best life. So really get clear on that and figure out what it looks like to you, and not based on someone else's idea. I would say also create different savings funds. So I kind of already touched on this, but you want to make sure that you're creating different savings funds, that you have your why for why you're saving. That makes it so much easier for you to save even more because there is a motivation behind it. There is a goal, there's an end goal to you saving. If you have no reason why you want to save, you're not going to save. So definitely start to set up different savings goals. Getting clear as to what kind of savings goals you need. Maybe it's to buy a house. Maybe it's for renovations. Maybe it's for travel. Maybe it's for losing your job, an emergency fund just in case something goes wrong. You need to figure out what kind of savings funds you need and why. Then it will be much easier for you to save because you have a clear why, and you are now able to set up smarter goals and actually be motivated. My last point is take advantage of discounts and rewards programs. So there are so many opportunities out there to get cash back. I know a lot of banks, companies that are offering cashback options through cards that you use. point systems. A lot of banks have like travel point systems, so you're gaining all these points so that you can use those points to get a free flight. I know that there are points cards for free food, or when you spend on groceries and gas, that gives you points to use towards entertainment and other sort of fun activities. So definitely look into like what's really important to you. For me, I've always had an Air Miles card because I love to travel, and when I do my groceries, I'm definitely using my Optimum point. I just got an Aeroplan because I have been taking Air Canada flights a lot more often, especially to go and see my boyfriend in New Jersey, more domestic and like shorter flights between the States and Canada. So I've started to get a card now for racking up points around Aeroplan. So I think it's just really figuring out like your lifestyle needs, what category you're spending the most, and if there's a way to be rewarded for spending in that category. And just being really smart about it and being strategic about, if I'm going to spend a lot of money in this area, I might as well get a lot of points for it in return. And I really caution people that are using credit card reward point systems, because then you're using money that is not yours to reward yourself. And I really want people to get away from that idea of rewarding myself, treating myself to things with other people's money. You want to treat yourself to things with your own money. So I try to use cards like Neo or Koho, and I'll drop in the description below. These are cards that I use. Like Koho, you have to load money onto it, and by using the money that's already on it, you're gaining cash back on that. Versus Neo, it's a credit card, so you're being rewarded for using money that you don't really have. So that is sort of the discrepancy and the difference, and I really want to encourage people to lean more towards prepaid debit cards that have cashback options, because you're using money that is already yours and being rewarded for that. There's also platforms and sites. Rakuten is a big one that a lot of my friends like to use, where you shop through connecting to sites through that platform first to get extra discounts. I would definitely say a great way to get discounts on products is to sign up for a company's mailing list, email list. Now, I'm in email marketing, so that is my specialty in marketing, and that is how I drove a lot of money for my business, and how a lot of other businesses drive a lot of wealth and revenue for themselves too. And so you just have to kind of be mindful that if you're signing up for people's marketing emails, really make sure that it's going to be adding value into your life and not subtracting. I know a lot of people that get caught up in the psychology of marketing and hearing the word sale, and as soon as they hear the word sale, even if they don't have money, they will find the money, they will go on credit cards, go into further debt to engage in said sale when there was always going to be a sale. So I think not getting caught up in sales all the time. Just because something is on sale doesn't mean you need to buy it right away. You don't impulsively need to possess said item or thing or service or experience. Being mindful that there will always be another sale. There are always other ways to find discounts and create opportunities to spend your money more wisely, and not having to feel like you need to rush to buy something now even though you don't have the money, because there's never going to be another opportunity in the future. That is coming from a place of scarcity, and we want to avoid having a scarcity mindset when it comes to our finances. We always want to come from a place of abundance, knowing that there are always going to be more opportunities to grow, to amass wealth. And that is always true when it comes to discounts and rewards. So don't feel bad about yourself if you miss a discount or you miss a sale or some kind of reward points because you did not spend in that period of time or moment. The opportunity will always be there. And I hope that if you really wield these 5 different ways of saving more money, that it actually really does help. And I guarantee you will start to see and notice that you are saving more than you were before. Please let me know in the comments below if you've tried any of these strategies, if they've been helpful, what strategy you are going to try because you haven't tried it yet. And if you want to hop on a call with me to work through some of these strategies more, if you want some more one-on-one accountability and help around managing your finances, saving more money, paying off your debts, even starting to invest, what that looks like, you need to learn how to save so that you can start investing and having your money work for you. You can't invest with money that you don't have. So saving is going to be super important along your journey of starting to build wealth and build generational wealth. This is not just for you. This is for the people that will come after you, and making sure that you secure yourself, that you are financially secure in this lifetime, and for the people coming after you and after that. So please reach out to me. You can find out ways to work with me in the description below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video to be helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.